everybody. Welcome back to Baumhauer's Victory Grill here in Tuscaloosa, the Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance. Eli Gold, joined by our special media guest, Ivan Maisel, Vice President Editorial and Senior Writer for On3.com. I'm not surprised you're here. I mean, there are some other good football games, but I'm not surprised you're in Tuscaloosa.
No, two really good teams, great storylines. I'm really curious. I was in Gainesville, and I want to see the progress Alabama's made.
Yeah, have you stopped sweating yet? That was one of the hottest, most humid evenings. I saw you toiling over your computer.
Oh, yeah.
And it's great to have you with us here. The coach having made his way into the restaurant, and he is getting situated now. And Coach, as always, great to have you. Good to see you. How you doing, all right?
Doing great. What's going on?
Well, doing all right. Talking with Ivan here about his new website, On3.com, and we all know how great of a writer he is, and it's nice to be able to have him on the show tonight.
Yeah, we love it. Ivan's been one of the good guys for Alabama for a long time. We really appreciate his professionalism. As a writer, and I've always enjoyed doing things with him. He's been very fair to us.
Yeah, his mom is down in Mobile, so he has an affinity to our area. Ivan, why don't you jump in and throw the first question of the evening at the coach?
Sure. Nick, the first month of the season, there have been a lot of teams that were expected to be really good and haven't been there, and for various reasons. But I'm curious, do you think that there's, as goofy as last year was, with not as much ability to practice and that, the transfer portal, what is it about this year that everything seems to, people are struggling to meet expectations?
Well, I think the culture has changed, a little bit. I mean, even in our society. You've heard me talk about when I grew up as a kid, there was always kind of a day of reckoning. Well, that is still true, except we don't all grow up that way anymore. Just like if your thoughts, your habits, the things you do are all the right kind of things, then when you come to the day of reckoning, which is a game on Saturday when you play, if you're an athlete, then if you do the right things, then your day of reckoning is always going to come out positive for you. But if you don't do the right things, then you may struggle. And I think that, there's more and more people telling players not to play. I don't know how not performing creates value. I don't know how not performing is a good thing for anyone. But that's what's happening. If you get injured, it's more important to stay healthy. But, sometimes when you're injured and you're injured, you're not really hurt, and you still can play, it's an opportunity for you to show everyone that you're a warrior, that you're tough, you can play when you're not 100%. I tell players all the time, NFL players play all the time when they're not 100%. College players think they can't play unless they are 100%. And because they're afraid in the NFL, somebody's going to take my job. All right, if I don't play this week and somebody plays better than me that takes my place, I may not get back in the lineup. So it's a little different mentality. But so I think some of these things are sort of affecting people's development. I think some of these things are affecting work ethic. I think some of these things are affecting developing the right habits so that you can play as well as you're capable of playing. And it's a constant thing with us trying to motivate our players to understand, how important it is to do the right thing so that you develop the right habits. I mean, it's impossible to go out and practice. When you practice, you should be focused on what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it. And if you can do that and get repetitions, then when the game comes, you won't have to think about what to do and how to do it. It'll just be natural to you, and you can go play aggressive, play fast, focus on the next play, and really, play well and create value for yourself. But if you don't do that in practice and you're not well prepared, it creates a lot of anxiety when you go play because you're not sure what you're supposed to do. You're not sure how you do it. Then you get beat. Then you get frustrated. So all these things sort of add up, to inconsistency in performance. just like our team early in the season. And I think we kind of got over it last week because we actually played with intensity for 60 minutes in the game, regardless of who was playing. But we get ahead 27-3, and it was like, oh, time for us to take it easy. All right, we get ahead 21-3 at Florida, and it's like, time for us to take it easy. All right, so that's not how you compete. That's not how you play good teams. And then you do that on the road, and then you let the other team make some plays, and the momentum of the game changes. The crowd gets into the game. And now, you feel like a boulder rolling down the hill. You can't get it stopped. And you give everybody else a real advantage. So there's a lot of things from a mindset and a psychological standpoint that young players really have to learn. And a lot of these guys have been better than everybody else, so they never had to do this before. And I don't know, I know good high school coaches are trying to train them to do that. But guys that haven't had to do it don't really see a reason why they need to do it. But now when they play against better players, there is a need for them to do it.
So you have to do you coach differently with a young team like this year's team versus some of the teams you've had in the past?
Yeah, because I get on young guys' ass a lot more than I get on older guys' ass. Excuse my language, because I tell young guys, if you can't take me getting on your butt, about not doing things the right way, and you can't not say anything and hear what I say and go do it without your little ego getting involved in it, having some humility. Pride in performance is great, but also having humility is pretty good to help you understand and respect what you have to do to be a good competitor and respect winning. So older guys, I know they'll go play. I know they'll go compete. All I have to do is tell them what to do and how to do it. Never have to raise your voice. To guys that have been there, done that, played in national championship games and won for you.
Sure.
Well, I mean, they do it. They practice the way you're supposed to practice. So do I coach a young team differently? Yeah, I have to be a little more aggressive sometimes.
Yeah. Ivan, our first question on the phone is from a gentleman who calls in every week, Pee Wee, from down not far from your mom's place. He's in Grand Bay, Alabama, and Pee Wee's our first phone call, brought to you by 811. Make sure you contact 811 before you dig. To know what's below, call 811 or visit al811.com. Pee Wee, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Hey, Coach, how are you, sir?
Good, Pee Wee. What's going on, buddy?
Well, I want to kind of go along with the theme that y'all been talking about so far. After the Florida game, Will Anderson talked about playing to an Alabama standard and how he, as a leader, had always done by leading by example. But he was going to start taking a more vocal leadership role. I was just wondering how he has progressed in that, and has any other players decided to step up in a vocal leadership role to get everybody, on the same page and ready to play?
I think that we do have players that are, but I do think that when you have a young team, that young players who have leadership capability, which Will Anderson fits in that category, they sometimes feel like they have to become good players before they can really impact and affect somebody else. Like I see Bryce becoming more of a leader on the offense, which I felt he was a little apprehensive about doing that because he had never been a starter before. All right, so until he sort of created some value for himself in terms of his consistency in performance and how he played, he was maybe a little apprehensive about telling somebody else what they should do. But I think as players play well, other players get more respect for them and they trust in them. All right, so when they do say something, I think it's a lot more impactful. All right, so you got both of those things happening when you have young players. I mean, we have leadership group this year. We only have 2 seniors on the whole leadership group. So it's, but I think it's a work in progress, and I think there are players developing in those roles as they play and have success, and the other players gain trust and respect for them.
One gentleman I'd like to bring up is Chris Owens, one of the semifinalists for the Campbell Trophy, which was the award that Barrett Jones won way back in 2012. Academic success, leadership, on-field activity. It was nice to see him included on that semifinal list.
Well, I think the Campbell Award is something that people should really hold in much higher esteem than they do, because this is a player that is the best student and the best player, a combination of the two. It's like the Heisman Trophy of the whole man, in my opinion. And I knew Bill Campbell, who the award was named after, and have a lot of respect for him and what it stands for. And I was never prouder of a player when Barrett Jones won the Outland Trophy for being the best offensive lineman and won the Campbell in the same year. I think that's a tremendous honor, and I think sometimes people overlook that because we're all fans and we look at the football part of it. But for Chris Owens, who has done a really good job on our team, he's played center, he's played left tackle, now he's playing right tackle. He is one of the older folks on the team who has experience, and he's done a really nice job for him, and I'm really pleased that he's being recognized because he is a fine young man, and he's a very good student.
Yeah, great honor. Ivan, jump in.
Yeah, I love the Campbell Trophy. Nick, you brought up Bryce beginning to show leadership. We hear a lot about his poise, especially for being a young player. Tell me an example, either in the meeting room, on the field, somewhere you've seen poise that's unusual for a guy that young.
Well, I think that there's been several occasions where even in practice, I stand behind the quarterback a lot, especially when we're going against each other, and he'll misread something, throw the ball in the wrong place or whatever, and he'll immediately turn around and say, my bad, I should have read it this way and I shouldn't have thrown that ball there or whatever. A lot of guys have a hard time admitting that they didn't do what they were coached to do, and I think that that shows his poise, it shows his leadership, it shows the fact that he's looking at that opportunity as an opportunity to learn, not really worried about, I didn't do the right thing, am I going to get criticized now, am I not going to get criticized, how am I going to get criticized, who's going to say what to me. I mean, he's self-critical in a positive way, he doesn't get down about it, but he's learning, from the play, which is what you'd like for every player to do in a game. Just like this team we're going to play this week. Okay, these tempo teams that try to go fast, basically what they're trying to do is dictate the game. They're trying to dictate the game. So they're trying to get the other team out of sorts. They're trying to get the other team to make mental mistakes because they can't get lined up. They can't do things fast enough. And so you can't get out of sorts. Even if they make a play, you got to be able to focus on the next play. All right, so I guess, is it a sign or is it a test? So, like, if they gain 12 yards because they run inside zone and we don't get lined up right and it's just a zone slider, which we've seen 1,000 times before, and they gave 12 yards, is that time for everybody to say, oh, this is a sign that this is not going to go well today? All right, or is it a test? All right, okay, we messed up on that play. All right, so we kind of failed that test. All right, well, we got the next play, and it's a test. All right, so we're going to come right back with the same energy, intensity, and focus to be able to focus on the next play. All right, so we can play the next play. It's kind of like a baseball pitcher. I mean, you got to keep pitching the ball 100 miles an hour, and you got to keep making good pitches, and sometimes they hit them and sometimes they don't. But you got to make the next pitch, and that's how you have to really, your mindset has to be when you play these teams. And what I see and what happened to our teams, especially early on, and we've been trying to get this mindset with our players for this game, is they started to reel. I don't know if anybody knows what I mean by reel. It means, one thing goes wrong, I get frustrated, then something else goes wrong, and I'm frustrated and I'm creating anxiety, and now all of a sudden I'm emotional and I'm not really making good choices and decisions. And you can't really keep deciding to focus on what you're supposed to do. You're so upset with what you didn't do that now you've enhanced the chances of something bad happening on the next play. So that's what you can't, and that's what I call reeling. You're kind of reeling in the wrong direction. And you can't let that happen because this team's going to make plays. They average 675 yards or something a game on offense and 52 points. So if they made half of that in this game, they would make a lot of plays. All right, so you got to be able to play the next play. And it's a challenge to get lined up. You got to get lined up fast, and you got to be able to focus on what you're supposed to do. And then you got to do the same thing on offense. All right, even though they're a really good offensive team. They got to improve defense, but the offense has to control the tempo of the game when we have the ball too, so that the other team's not dictating the game to you. All right, then you're on your heels, all right, and things usually don't go well because you're not able to decide to stay focused on the next play.
Coach Nick Saban, our media guest is Ivan Maisel. We're going to come right back. We've got more of your calls. Your phone lines are jammed up right now, but we'll get to you as quickly as we can. The name of the show is The Nick Saban Show, and you're listening to it here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. He's got running room, spun around, breaks the tackle. He's on his way. He's going to bring it back 101 yards. Touchdown, Alabama. 14 seconds and 101 yards. Officially, of course, 100 yards, but Alabama took that early lead and never did look back. This segment of the Nick Saban Show, presented by Royal Furniture, family owned and operated for 75 years. Royal Furniture has locations in Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Memphis, and Jackson, Tennessee for your shopping convenience. Coach, that highlight leads me into our first question from the Nick Saban Radio Show blog on AL.com. Joe is in Irondale, and he wants to know about our return game. He said, obviously, it's turned into a weapon for the Tide. Can you comment on the early play of both Jamison Williams and the freshman JoJo Earl? Thank you, and Roll Tide.
Yeah, well, we had last week a 48-yard punt return, and a guy 50 yards from the play, threw a guy on the ground that had nothing to do with the play. All right, these kinds of choices and decisions and lack of discipline. All right, so it's 48 yards, all right, plus the penalty. So that's like 60-some yards. Yep. All right, then we have another punt return for 26 yards, and we block a guy in the back. All right, which we teach guys we call it pull off a clip. All right, so you don't clip a guy, you just screen. All right, but these kids have to make full speed decisions, all right, like in these situations, and they got to make the right ones. So you take that 26 yards and tack on the penalty. That is just in punt returns. 100 yards of field position lost in punt returns. So, and for every 100 yards in the game, Bill Parcells used to tell me this all the time, for every 100 yards of field position in a game, it adds up to a touchdown. 6 points.
Sure.
So we lost 100 yards in the game, so we probably lost 6 points in the game. And, those are the kind of mistakes that you just have to eliminate. Everybody's got to grow up. I don't care if you're a freshman doing it or how much you played. You can't make those kind of mental errors. But to comment on the question is the return game has been good. Now, we're going to play against teams that have better special teams, have bigger guys, have more speed. So our ability to execute on these teams will be tested a little bit more. So, but I'm encouraged because it develops confidence in players when you have that kind of success, in the kicking game.
Definitely. Coach, we have some visitors over here to our left who'd like to throw a question at you. Good evening, folks.
Hi, Mr. Saban. This is Mark and Annette Carson from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Oh, great.
We wanted to ask you what you think our biggest challenges are with Ole Miss this weekend.
Yeah, well, it's definitely going to be their offense and their quarterback, his ability to execute their offense in a very positive way. They run the ball for like 258 yards a game or something. They've got great balance, run and pass. He's a very athletic guy. He can beat you with his feet. He's very good at extending plays and finding receivers downfield off the scramble. And he does a great job with their RPOs and their play-action passes. And he's been playing in this offense now for a couple years. So he and the players that he play with are very tuned in to each other and how they sort of manage their routes. And it's a very well-conceived offense. There's a lot of what I call eye candy that they use with people going in motion, rocket motion, orbit motion. And then they just run a basic zone play But because that guy went in rocket motion right in front of the linebackers, they don't always fit the right gap. So it takes a tremendous amount of discipline, and you got to be able to adjust formations properly, and you got to have good play recognition by the entire defensive team, because they'll run a zone play. They got two guys running slants over here. They got an RPO, post route on the other side. So if everybody doesn't do exactly what they're supposed to do, this quarterback is going to read it and make a positive play for them. So everybody's going to have to play great teams defense, and they're going fast, so you got to get lined up, and you cannot make mental errors because they will take huge advantage of that. And then they have gone for like 14 fourth downs this year, and I don't think they've been stopped yet on fourth down. And so if they're across the 50 now, they're going for it on fourth down. And so that makes third down different. All right, so if it's 3rd and 7, it's really 3rd and 3.5, because they're going to take 2 plays to get it. All right, so you got to have a different mindset in terms of how you play defense. And it's very difficult to substitute because they're going fast. If you substitute on 3rd down and put dime team in the game like we usually do, they'll try to go fast, so you can't do that. But if they convert, they will definitely go fast, so you can't get the nickel team back in. So you got to be able to play with the players you have on the field and only substitute when you get the opportunity to do it. So there's a lot of challenges in playing this offense. Now, defensively, and I don't think people realize this, they completely changed their system and scheme to where they play 6 defensive backs or 6 defensive tight guys as defensive backs, and they play a 3-2 front, like Iowa State's defense. And people probably don't know what that means. I don't even know why I said that. But anyway, there's a lot of 8 drops. All right, so there's an extra guy in coverage all the time. They rush 3 guys a lot. So that makes it a little dirtier for the quarterback. So it's going to be really challenging for our quarterbacks and receivers to read this stuff and create good spacing so we have opportunities to make plays.
Folks, great to have you with us from Grand Rapids. Let me jump in real quick. Corral obviously is a spectacular quarterback. We know that. This, however, is going to be his first game in front of a hopefully louder than heck opposition crowd. Last year, obviously, it was 11, 12,000 people, what have you. As a starter, I'm talking. Here's an opportunity for the Bama fans to, like you've been talking, to really get involved and make it difficult, because all of their games this year have been at home, and last year everything was in front of a lesser crowd size-wise.
Yeah, well, look, this is the first game that we've had in Bryant-Denny Stadium with a full stadium and a full crowd playing an SEC school for a year and a half.
Yeah.
All right, so everybody should be excited about the opportunity to play an SEC game in Bryant-Denny Stadium with a full stadium, which was just a way of life for all of us for years and years and years, forever. So we all should be excited about that, but I will tell you this, the crowd can have an impact on the game. It makes it more difficult for the offense to check. It makes it more difficult for them to go. It affects their cadence if there's a lot of noise. But this has to be something that is relentless and every play.
Sure.
All right, it can't be every now and then. You want the players to play every play in the game. I'm trying to get them to focus on every play in the game, even if it was a bad play the play before, focus on the next play. The fans have to do the same thing. You got to make every play in the game tough for the quarterback, which it wasn't so tough for us at Florida in the first quarter. All right, but after they scored and got the momentum of the game, I mean, we struggled with 7 pre-snap infractions on offense with false starts and all kinds of stuff, and a lot of it was affected by the crowd. So I think our crowd can have an impact on the game in this game as well.
Sure can. Ivan, go ahead, sir.
Nick, you brought up Lane's not punting when he gets on the plus side of the field. You got this guy at Presbyterian College that's not punting at all. Has it changed your thoughts about the use of the punt at all?
Well, I have thought about it. Everybody does analytics now, right? So everybody's like into the statistics, and you throw it all in the computer and how many people go for it on fourth down, how often do you make it, what percentage of the time do you make it. is that percentage worth the 40, 50 yards you gain in field position by punting? So now I would say the thing that has changed my mind a little bit about it is when you played really, really good defense and games were won 14-10, which seldom happens anymore. All right, because the rules of the game in college football favor the offense, and that's why you see all these points. I've said this before. In 2010, we gave up 8 points a game.
Sure.
All right, now last year we gave up, I think, 19 a game, and we were first in the SEC in points allowed on defense. And I didn't think we had a great defense or anything like that, but it just goes to show how hard it is to play defense. So when you say, okay, we're going to punt the ball and gain 40 yards of field position, the way people move the ball now and the advantages that you have on offense with some of the rules, it's not as important to play field position football as it used to be.
Interesting. And the analytics, how long did it take you to embrace that, from the seat of the pants coaching to relying on a computer spitting out some stuff? How difficult was that?
Well, I'm not an analytics guy.
Right.
Okay, so I know coaches who are, and I know coaches that we've had on our staff in the past that very much are. And I like for our coaches to look at the analytics, then come and bring them up to me, and I can say, that don't make any sense.
Gotcha.
All right? Or I can say, wow, it's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
But philosophically, some guy that hasn't played football ever, and he sits at a computer and puts a bunch of stuff in the computer, and you got to have a feel for your team too.
Sure.
All right, like one of the questions I always have is how good are we in those situations? Do we have good plays to call in those situations? Do we feel good about our opportunity to convert in those situations? So all these things are factors in the game relative to how the other team plays and what they do.
And, of course, you are 174 wins and only 23 losses at Alabama, so there's no computer that needs to tell you what to do. You're doing pretty darn well by yourself.
Well, it's not that. I mean, we've always had good players, and we've had a lot of good players, as evidenced by the fact that how many guys we have playing in the NFL. We've had a lot of good coaches here.
Yep.
We've got an institution and an athletic administration who totally support trying to have the best program that you can have in the country. And we won because we have really good players and we have really good coaches and we have great support from our administration and the athletic department. So it's not me.
Well, with that said, we'll break away as we're sitting with a great coach right here and a darn good sports writer, Ivan Maisel, who's now writing as the senior writer for On3.com. We're back in a moment here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Price loads up, looks long, has Jamison behind the defense. See ya! My goodness! 81 yards. That was quick. It was quick. You can't teach speed. Jamison Williams blessed with it. Great job between he and Bryce again as Alabama put the victory on Southern Miss over the weekend. This segment of the Nick Saban Show, sponsored by New Coke Zero Sugar. New look, improved taste. New Coke Zero Sugar. Why don't we go back to the phones and head north to Scottsboro, Alabama. Sean, you're on the Nick Saban Show. Welcome in.
Hey, thank you. Hey, Coach.
Hi, Sean. How are
you? I'm great, sir. It's an honor to talk to you. I've heard your thoughts on, players skipping bowls and some seasons to prepare for the NFL, but that seemed to trickle down to high school. As you're thinking about recruiting and stuff, I know personally of several players that have foregone their senior season to prepare for college. How does that, in your mind, I mean, I don't know exactly how to say it.
Does that help or hurt these guys?
Is that a positive, a negative, or a non-factor to you?
Well, I think it is a factor, but I think you got to thoroughly investigate and evaluate each player individually as to what the circumstances surrounding him playing or not playing may have But, basically it's what I talked about before. People seem to think that they can get rewarded for non-performance. That's not really how we all grew up. It's not really what we believe in, but there seems to be more and more people who are sort of inspiring folks to not do things as if that's going to create value for them. I don't think that's the case. I do think that there's still a respect for someone who is a competitor and will do what's best for their team that I hold in high regard. But I think that there's several players that we're recruiting that aren't playing, but they're not playing for a reason. There's a reason behind why they're not playing. It wasn't that they just chose not to play for their team. And I think there's a bit of a difference, in that. And I think each one of those things have to be evaluated individually.
Talking about the mental makeup of young guys today, Nick, is there a way, you've talked about how you got to get them to understand work ethic. Is there a way in either how they look at the game, how they look at life, any way in their mental makeup that's better than kids used to be?
I think there's a lot of really talented guys. They're more worldly. I think the internet has been a positive in terms of guys understanding socially things. Guys can articulate. They just seem to be more all around developed from a maturity standpoint. But when it comes to maturity from a competitive standpoint, that's a little different. That's kind of what I was talking about before.
Right.
And you got some guys that, man, I tell you, they're just great competitors. We got some of our freshmen that are great competitors on our team right now. And we got some guys that struggle to do the right things so that they can have an opportunity to compete. And they don't seem to understand that you get rewarded for, what you do today affects your future success tomorrow. Right? By the habits that you create, the things that you do, and how your teammates actually develop trust and respect in you. They just have a hard time, understanding that concept. It's a little bit, some are a little bit, I don't know, maybe a little bit too much. They think about just how everything affects them rather than being able to see the big picture of being a part of a team. This is not an individual sport. Football is not an individual sport. It's an opportunity for a lot of individuals to do a lot of really, really good things. But you can't do anything if the other guys around you don't do what they're supposed to do. I don't care what position that you're playing. And I think, leadership in older guys actually impacts young players more than anything else. So it's almost like, I don't want to call it peer pressure, but just influences from their peers will have a greater impact sometimes than what a coach says. Because I think when a coach says things over and over and over, players eventually just don't listen anymore. They just kind of shut it off. But if their peers are saying things that they should be doing, that has a much greater impact. And that's where leadership becomes so important on a team. We had great leadership on our team last year. We had some of the best leaders we've ever had, and I think that's why that team was really successful.
And, of course, Coach Nick Saban. We're listening to the Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance. Let's go back to the phones. Kay is with us in Pensacola, Florida. Hello, Kay.
Hey, hi, Eli. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for calling.
Hi, Miss Kay.
Thank you. Hey, Coach.
What's going on?
Oh, just so happy to talk to you. I just want to know what it will take for the defense to play better and not have so many penalties. I think we got like 9 penalties and this against Southern Miss, and I was just wondering what it would take for the defense to play better?
Well, thank you for your question. And you're right. She's right. Nobody wakes up and says they want to commit penalties. How do you try and remedy that?
It's discipline.
Yeah.
I mean, jumping the snap count, that's discipline. That's focus and discipline. And you train yourself to be disciplined, to do the right things. And, you know, I've given this speech many, many times.
Sure.
You know, people think discipline starts on the field. Discipline doesn't start on the field. Discipline starts at 8 o'clock in the morning when you get up, because you start making decisions about what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. And my definition of self-discipline is different than, you know, doing what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, the way it's supposed to get done, do the right thing the right way, the right time, all the time. Those are great definitions of discipline. All right, but we ask ourselves two questions hundreds of times every day. Here's something I know I'm supposed to do that I really don't want to do. Can you make yourself do it? And over here, there's something you know you're not supposed to do, but you want to do it. Can you keep yourself from it? So if you can make those choices and decisions, and we make hundreds every day, what we eat, what we do, how we say things, whether we get up and go to class when you know you're supposed to go but you don't feel like going. So it's a difference between doing what you feel like doing and choosing to do the things you need to do to accomplish the goals that you have. So that doesn't start on the field. It starts at 8 o'clock in the morning when you get up. I got class today. I got 8 o'clock class. I got to be on time. I don't feel like going. I don't feel like getting up. It's raining outside. You going or not?
Yep. Very simple, but it's not easy.
I know I'm not supposed to hold this guy. I know I'm not supposed to throw him on the ground 50 yards from the play. I know that.
Sure. But why?
But I wanted to throw him down, so I threw him down. I know I'm not supposed to do it, but I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Can you keep yourself from it?
So you did it and cost us 100 yards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I know what you're saying.
Okay. So, am I happy about it? Not no. Hell no.
Hell no. And on those two words, we're going to break away and take care of some business. We return with more of the Nick Saban Show right after this on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Ivan, that was quite the weekend, but now we're up to the next one. Another question for the coach.
Nick, you've talked about, with Lane's offense, you've talked about tempo and you've talked about eye candy. What else about what he does between the lines makes it so different?
Well, I think what they do, because of the way the system is set up, and you know he did it very well here, is knowing what the other team is doing and having the complementary plays that go with what you're doing to be able to take advantage of that. I think that's, and then, you know, he does a good job of recognizing it during the game and being able to get those plays called. So, you know, he's taking advantage, you know, of however you're trying to play things, and always has the complementary play to do the next thing.
And that's difficult to deal with. Coach, a quick question, totally off the subject. From our blog, the Nick Saban Show blog, Mary Lee from Pearl, Mississippi. Coach, I enjoyed hearing the story this week of your late aunt sending you plays prior to games. Does Miss Terry or other family members ever suggest plays during game week to you?
Miss Terry always wants to blitz more. You know, but I've never said this to Miss Terry, but I'm a secondary coach. And secondary coaches that play for coaches who blitz a lot, they end up sleeping under the bridge and twitching.
And twitching.
Like this.
That's great.
Because you're always putting the back end in a tough situation. Now, Aunt Fran and my mom, they would be considered the ultimate offensive coordinators, because any play that doesn't work, it's who called that play.
Who called that, yeah.
Who called that play? If it works, it's fine. But if it doesn't work, it's who called that play. So, but no, Aunt Katie was, God bless her, always sent me a game plan in a letter every week.
Really?
All right, with plays drawn up. I mean, X's and O's, actual plays drawn up and things. But The most memorable story is the one I told this week when I was at LSU, and it came up because I was on with Eli and Peyton.
Yes.
On Monday night, and Eli was a quarterback, and I was at LSU, and Eli played really well against us, and they beat us like 34-24. But Rohan Davey was our quarterback, and Aunt Katie told me that she saw Ole Miss play on ESPN, and they play, she called it a radar defense, where everybody stood up on defense, which they did. All right, well, to the offense, you're always trying to say, okay, here's the 4 down guys in the mic. That's who the offensive line blocks, and then who's the back block opposite that, whether it's 5-man protection, 6-man protection, 7-man protection. Well, you can't figure it out when everybody's standing up, because what are you going to say? All these numbers are the guys you're blocking, and then they had all these blitzes out of it. So Aunt Katie tells me, she says, you need to go no huddle against this radar defense because it's going to confuse your quarterback. So Rohan played the worst game of his career because we didn't go no huddle. I think he got sacked like 5 or 6 times, threw a couple interceptions. So it was a bad day all the way around from not listening to Aunt Katie.
Yeah, I told you so, I bet you. Coach, unfortunately, the clock says it is time for your final word, because we could sit here and talk for hours, I know. But the final word is presented each week by Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing.
Look, everybody should be really excited to have an SEC game at home in a full stadium against a very good ranked team. And your energy, passion, and enthusiasm should reflect that. And it should be something that has an impact on the players to be able to do what I'm trying to get them to do, to be able to focus on the next play so we don't lose momentum in the game, that we don't lose focus in the game, that we don't lose our intensity in the game. And I think the crowd can have a tremendous impact on that, especially when they have the ball. Noise has to be an issue for any offense. If you make them go on silent, their guys can't get off the ball as well. If they can still use their regular cadence, then it's not that big of an issue. It makes it more difficult for them to check plays. It makes it more difficult for them to communicate from the sidelines. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of good things that our fans can do to impact this game, and it's a team effort. So I've always said that every supporter and every fan is a part of our team. And we need you to be a part of the team on Saturday.
Yep, we are all in this together, no question about it. Coach, thank you as always, sir, for your time, and we'll see you throughout the weekend.
All right, thank you.
Coach Nick Saban with us. Ivan Maisel, let's talk quickly about your new venture, on3.com. We had mentioned it a little bit earlier. Tell the folks what they will see and find when they get to that website.
Eli, we have 3 prongs, basically. There's a lot of recruiting material, and a lot of that is we have a paywall, and a lot of that is behind it because there's a big appetite for it. Sometime this month, we're going to unveil a database of recruiting history, and that is unlike anything anybody's ever put together.
Really?
So that's one arm. The second arm is, we have several team sites. We don't have them all yet. We just got started, but we've either created or gone out and bought team sites, and their material funnels to us, and our material funnels to them. And then the third is what I do: just go out and tell stories. And I'm in front of the paywall. I'm a carnival barker trying to get people into the tent.
But you're not strictly game stories. You're personality pieces and the background stuff.
Exactly. I did a piece today on Blake Coram, the young running back at Michigan who leads the nation in all-purpose yardage. He's an engaging young guy, and he's going to be a star.
Well, listen, I wish you the very best with on3.com, and great to have you with us on the show. It's always a pleasure.
Me too. Thanks, Eli.
All right, Ivan Maisel joining us here. Hey, Coach, on the Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance. Protect your cars, home, life, and business with Alpha. Get a quote or find a local agent at alphainsurance.com.